All right, you guys, we're back today with Joey from the channel Jola. Got some great stuff over there. You've seen him before on my channel, but we're back today to chat about crazy events coming out. Donald Trump canceling his the Florida convention that he was going to have. This is pretty big news. This comes, of course, as Donald Trump is starting to, it seems to, I mean, we've seen a lot of peaks and troughs and stuff. Seems to be, at least for the past few days, taking the virus a little bit more seriously. The question, though, is this going to stick? What do you think?
I mean, it's really all about politics. He has no values and he has no clear goals. I mean, he cares
Right.
about marketing and about, how things look. And at the beginning of this entire crisis, you saw his approval ratings actually go up because he was taking it seriously. He was at a prime position. He had the microphone in front of
Yeah.
every American's face. His approval was going up because people were looking at him and saying, like, okay, wow, he is able to take a situation seriously and not like a child. But then his corporate, dad, sugar daddies, as I always call them, came in. They're like, Trump, you got to stop doing that. You got to stop doing the COVID stuff. You have to open up the markets and whatever.
Right.
He totally reversed the course. He knew what was going to work politically, but I feel like people got in his ear to make him divert away from that path. Now he's realizing his poll numbers are abysmal.
Or a
He's down
disaster.
so far to a walking corpse in Joe Biden, who is unable to do a standalone speech. He's having an Obama special coming up soon. I'm sure you've seen a little bit about that. He's doing like a
Hmm.
Netflix series, like documentary, like interview with Obama for an hour. But
Okay.
he's down 20 points. Trump realizes he needs to take this seriously because the people in the middle are sick of this. The poll numbers show that 72% of Americans support some type of like legal mandate for mask wearing, whether it's a fine or
Right.
jailing. It's not even just a mandate. They support a penalty for not wearing a mask. So people who are complaining about not wearing masks, people who are doing the not mask wearing are
Right.
actually a really small minority. And
Yeah.
Trump figured that out. And I think that's one of the reasons he's canceling. Another is we got reports that Donald Trump is actually pretty scared himself of getting coronavirus, being a really overweight,
Hmm.
old man with a lot of health issues.
Huh, that's really interesting. Now, I will say I haven't seen that particular reporting. That'd be fascinating to take a look at. The one thing that I will say is I was just looking at this other poll that came out in Florida around the same time that Trump announced that he was canceling this thing, showing Donald Trump in a 13-point deficit in the state of Florida. Now, that is absolutely massive. Now, the other thing that's actually so crazy about this, guys, is that if you look throughout the history, look throughout history when it comes to Florida, Florida has been, at least for modern electoral history, voting the right of the popular vote, voting the right of the rest of the country. Right now, we're looking at a situation where Florida is in line with the popular majority, probably because of the fact that you have older people there, and older people are so worried, are much more worried. We've seen numerous polls are much more worried about coronavirus than maybe some younger people out there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you look at different situations around the country, which demographics have been impacted by COVID-19, so far the big hit cities have been more democratic cities because, high population density and,
Mm-hmm.
impoverished cities like New York City and LA that were hit pretty hard. LA wasn't hit hard until a little bit later, but the cities that were hit by COVID at the beginning were all Democratic run. So it wouldn't hurt Donald Trump politically because they already don't like Donald Trump.
Right.
Now that it reached down at these golfing resorts with all these old people who have to worry about it. It's right smack dab in their face. Americans, I mean, people in general, but it's really an American culture part, right now, that Americans could only believe things if it's right in front of their faces. And an outbreak in Florida is the last thing Donald Trump has wanted. And we're also seeing an outbreak in Texas, which is pushing that state to a point where Joe Biden is going to be able to compete there, which is another insane thing,
I
especially
know.
considering both of these states, Florida and Texas, large Hispanic population. Joe Biden's campaign said essentially we're not even going to go for that vote. And we're still seeing these numbers. And I
Yeah,
think that's insane.
I know that's the craziest part to me as well, which is that you look at the polls right now. Joe Biden is underperforming with Hispanic voters. You'd think that, well, that couldn't happen. This is Donald Trump we're talking about here. But no, Joe Biden is underperforming with Hispanic voters, even compared to Hillary Clinton last time around. So this is a situation right now where you'd think, well, Florida and Texas definitely not in play, but they're in play right now. even Texas, as you were saying there, Texas is possibly in play. I mean, look, it'll probably, if I had to put my money down, I'd probably say it's still going to go
Oh,
Republican. But I mean, the fact that it's even in play, the fact that this is a consideration is a big deal. Even if the state doesn't even flip, by the way, it still means that certain congressional districts could flip in the state of Texas, which could change the balance of power moving forward for the state of Texas. So, huge deal. Absolutely a huge deal right now.
yeah, and it's all about the Biden campaign strategy of focusing on the largest voting base in America, which is old white people. Old white people
Right.
control
That was their
every
thing from the
single
beginning.
election. 1% of the old white vote is bigger than like 20% of the overall Hispanic vote, and the Hispanic vote is the biggest minority voting group other than the African American voting group, especially when you look at the swing states in Texas and Florida, which I mean weren't swing states a couple months ago,
Hmm.
but now they are. And I would have said a little bit ago, like, don't even try to do Texas at all. Don't even put any money into Florida. Focus all your efforts on PA, Wisconsin, and Ohio and all that. And when you get to those states, we're talking more of Joe Biden's new plan, which is his Build Back Better initiative.
Right. Right.
And I actually think it's working because
Mm.
that, hunger for normalcy,
Mm.
even, in these times of desperation when all of our systems are crumbling, and people understand, the politics of Joe Biden, the politics of Nancy Pelosi, of Chuck Schumer, those politics led us to this point in history. But people still want to go back to that clear time because it really was so much less chaotic. And now we have all these news reports. Every week is a new 2020 event. It seems like, oh, 2020 is happening again. People really are looking back to Biden as that solid ground. The old white vote sees a home in Biden. Even if he messes up, they think, well, I do that
Hmm.
too sometimes. I'm old. Joe Biden's old. He's going to pick a good VP that's going to be able to recover even if he's not able to serve 100%.
Well, speaking of VP, then, who do you think? I mean, because it looks like that we might be in a situation where it's going to be coming out. I think they said like early August, possibly. So possibly just a few weeks from now. Because I do think that at least a few months ago, I definitely would have said that the VP pick this time around is more important than before because you have a much more older guy. He definitely his sentences like we get it right that the VP pick is incredibly important. Although again the polls right now seem to be suggesting that he's winning it anyway, that he's clobbering it anyway. Um, but who do you think in terms of VP? I'm still maybe leaning Kamala. What do you think?
Well, in terms of which, VP pick I think would be most successful for a general election, I think it should be
Right.
more of a no name. Actually, I think it shouldn't be
Mm,
Kamala. I don't even think
okay.
it should be Stacey Abrams at this point, which before I thought it should be Stacey Abrams because she had more of an up and comers position and it looked like she was carrying momentum and energy. But the more I see her performance, she isn't able to execute and excite like I thought she was able to. I mean, I think the corporate media played a role in convincing me that she was really someone who could incite that. She's great when she's fighting for, voter suppression issues. But when it comes to national politics and trying to get people motivated across the country, I'm talking, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, you're looking at the black vote, but you're looking at all these groups, every demographic in America, state by state from up in Wisconsin down to Florida. You need to be able to connect in all those places. I think they should pick a no name. And it's
Hmm.
like if you're re energizing a new superhero franchise. I don't always want you to pick a star that we know for a new superhero franchise. Like if you're rebooting something like Aquaman or something, or you're rebooting Aladdin, I don't want you to pick Will Smith in that position. I want it to be a new actor that could
Hmm.
create their own story and start their new timeline and come in fresh that people could get along with, that carries no baggage from the past, but also is thoroughly vetted because we don't want,
Right.
a situation as the Biden campaign where we pick a no name and then they end up crashing and burning.
Right. Well, you're talking about baggage and Stacey Abrams there. We do have baggage on Stacey Abrams, for instance. I mean, she was involved with helping Republicans to cut Hope funding, which, if you don't know, if you never lived in Georgia, Hope funding was basically their scholarship program that allowed people to go to college. They were going to cut it. They cut money for education. So it's definitely baggage there, definitely something that would not excite the progressive base at all, definitely something that would damper the progressive vote. Now, I do want to clarify when I said Kamala Harris, I don't mean that I'm cheering on for Kamala Harris here to win this thing, but I just think that Kamala Harris seems to be a pretty likely pick, though. You're definitely right that having a no name position could be, or someone who's maybe a little bit less heard could be interesting. But I do wonder about that bump, though. For instance, like if we're talking about getting like a progressive in, like someone like Barbara Lee, I think personally, I think, if Biden's going to be the guy, I think Barbara Lee is probably the best VP pick that
Yep.
we could go for. That's my opinion. I'm sure if we were to go through every name out there, I'm sure we could come up with a better name. But in terms of the names that have any realm of possibility, I think Barbara Lee is probably the best, but Kamala Harris is probably the most likely, though. What do you think?
Yeah, also you could consider Mayor Bottoms from Atlanta for that position. They are considering her. I think she'd be a decent choice because, we have to understand that in this age of communications, if you want people to get energized, you need someone who understands the playing field. And I think she is also someone who understands how to hold a microphone and how to use that effectively. Even if we disagree with, a certain person's politics,
Mm-hmm.
we could, call it out or give them credit for being a good politician. Like Obama was a great politician, a great speaker, although we disagreed with a lot of what he said or what he actually did. Because he spoke so good, and
Well,
that's really
that
what
means
you
that we
need.
can learn from him, right? That means we can learn from him in order to advocate for our ideas even better, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We have to be able to harness that skill and that, I don't want to say manipulation, but the way to coax people into your ideas. Pete Buttigieg talks like Obama now, and it works for a lot of
For a lot of
white
people,
people. And that's really what matters. You have to make
right?
white people comfortable. There's a reason Obama picked Biden in the first place because Biden made old white people comfortable with voting for a black man for president. So now Joe Biden, what demographic do you think he needs to appeal to get like a lock here with this polling right now? Because things are going to swing. I think this could change on a dime with one debate if
Oh,
Joe
no
Biden
doubt.
really messes up. There's going to be three debates within 4 weeks of the actual election, I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
So, who do you like? What demographic do you think he really needs to lock up? Because I feel like the old vote is going to be going back and forth, and the war of information is tough. They're still saying Joe Biden wants to defund the police, which scares away old people. But in reality, Joe Biden literally responded to defund the police by saying they need $300 million more in funding.
Right. Well, that's the big thing that the Trump campaign is trying to run on. They're trying to pitch Joe Biden as like the vessel for the far left. It's the it's the thing I keep bringing up. I think I brought it up to you last time we were talking, but it's the Trojan horse ad. We literally saw the Trump campaign run an ad where it's Joe Biden's face plastered onto the Trojan horse, and then you see Bernie Sanders hopping out, as if, oh, well, they're going to destroy you. They're going to trick you. Really, Joe Biden is just a vessel for AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Bernie Sanders. I wish. I wish,
Yeah.
right? But that's their strategy right now. That's their strategy right now. It's trying. They're clearly worried about this group of Republican voters. Whatever. I'm not sure what you would categorize them as, but Republican voters who might switch over to vote for Joe Biden, but wouldn't vote for someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC. They're worried about that demographic right now. Personally, though, I think they should be more worried about the older, the old, like the elderly population, right? They should be focusing in on the COVID stuff, right? Just sort of like what they're trying to do right now. I think that should be their aim, not the whole Joe Biden is really AOC thing.
Well, Kyle Kalinske did a segment on Fox News trying to argue against the Joe Biden campaign ad, where he talks about his new policy to give $800 million. I forget what the number was, but a certain X amount of money, it might be a billion,
Mm-hmm.
dollars to make sure that caregivers of children and the elderly are properly compensated for work that they do that is undervalued by society, which is a really Andrew Yang idea. I think they
Mm-hmm.
got that from his UBI mindset where he's saying these
Yeah.
people are not compensated. And that plays perfectly into this, pander to the elderly, pander to people who have kids who might need childcare. That was a really smart move. I think Joe Biden's campaign in that regard is going down a very smart path, and they got a good soundbite of Joe
Mm,
Biden reading off the teleprompter there, and that matters a lot too, because Trump is making a big mistake here when he talks about Joe Biden, because on one hand he's saying that Joe Biden is an Antifa super warrior, and then he's saying Joe Biden is also the weakest man in the history of existence. So when Joe Biden comes out and he
right.
says something that's really down the middle, when he's saying we need more funding for police to help hire better police or reform the actual policemen, give them better, event training or whatever you
Hmm.
might do.
Yeah.
When he talks about that, when he talks about giving money to childcare workers, that really hits a chord because people who do who are in the line of caring for other human beings, they're undervalued because they don't work for a profit. No one profits off of them. So Joe Biden's hitting a really good chord right there. I don't know how much he actually means, but that's
Hmm.
a policy I'm in favor of, personally. And I don't know if you would like something like that, but I think it's a smart campaign strategy.
Right. I think that that's definitely the way to go, especially given you're absolutely right, given the fact that the elderly population is absolutely vulnerable in the terms of Republicans right now. Because the thing is, generally you can count on the elderly vote to lean a little bit more right, lean a little bit more right than the rest of the population, at least right now. That's not always been the case, but at least for the past couple election cycles. And so for Joe Biden to lean into that, I definitely think that that's probably the right move. I think, yeah, that's a really good one. I hadn't seen that specific policy point come out, so I'm excited to hear that. I'm still not excited necessarily for Joe Biden's candidacy, but that particular thing, I agree with you. That's definitely the way to go there. Definitely the way to go there. So to sum this one up here, I just want to ask you, in the long run, do you think that this is the right way for Donald Trump to go down? Right, because one of the strategies that we're seeing from the Democratic Party right now is, well, we're just going to kind of be quiet, right? We saw it from Joe Biden early on, the basement Biden, the basement Biden attacks right now, but we're seeing it from the Democratic Party as well. Well, we're just going to be quiet and we're going to let the Republicans tie themselves up in a knot. But that holds the vulnerability, that holds the possibility that what if the Republicans start picking up and actually, you know, start handling things even 10% competent, you know,
Yeah.
that could swing things a little bit.
They have lowered the bar to the point where if they even
Yeah,
perform at the most simple
absolutely.
governmental, processes, they're gonna seem like they're all stars. They're
Yeah.
gonna be on a really bad sports team being the star player. And no matter what, even if a team like I'm not sure if you've had experiences with this in like high school or something, but even if a sports team is really bad, the best player on that team is still gonna get a lot of a spotlight and feel like
Mm.
the leader in the room. And I think right now if Donald Trump is saying wear a mask, if he said, which by the way, I'm happy about because I actually do see a lot of people who I didn't see before wearing masks
Hmm.
wearing it now, especially since Trump said it's patriotic to do it in his stupid ass tweet, the way he worded that, he did everything
I
he could to not say wear a mask.
I
Like
wasn't
some people say it's patriotic.
I wasn't 100% sure if it was actually written by Trump. I was looking through that tweet. I couldn't tell. I was like, is this written by Trump or is this someone written by someone pretending to be Trump? Like it was bizarrely worded. I couldn't quite tell.
Honestly, you could put that into like a word generator and it'll
Yeah.
be scrambled and come out as something that's coherent by Trump standards. But yeah, I think it's a smart thing to
Yeah.
do. So he's closing down the part of the RNC convention that was in Jacksonville, Florida, which I'm pretty sure is a hot spot. Now every part of the convention will be carried out in North Carolina, if I'm correct,
Hmm.
which could be a big deal as well. Maybe that's a sign that not only is Trump taking COVID more seriously, but maybe he's trying to get a focus on North Carolina. Maybe he's trying to bring the RNC there to energize,
Well, it's
the
not
whole
going to
show there to energize, that state for the general.
Right. Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's not going to be like quite as large. Like he's not trying to
Oh
do
yeah.
the whole like massive convention in a football stadium, like, oh, look how many people I have around me thing, because he knows that would just be bad press at this point, first of all. And second of all, he knows that if cases start spiking right after there, the press would just be all on him, hounding him on it. And he's starting to see that he is vulnerable to press criticism. Because for the longest time, the talking point around Donald Trump was he's this monster that you shoot him and then he just grows bigger, right?
Yep.
That was the thing that everybody was saying about Donald Trump. But we're seeing right now, actually, the monster can be harmed, right? Like something clearly hit him,
Well,
right?
the second wave of Corona is supposed to be this winter. I'm not sure which month that was supposed
Right.
to start, although the first wave never ended. If we have a scenario where we actually do take it seriously, and by October, mid-October, we're at 10,000 cases a day again in America, people could feel normal. People could feel safe when they go outside. They're wearing a mask. It's normal now.
Yeah.
Trump is leading every single day with his, basic bully pulpit. I mean, he could have had this for a long time. If he would
He
have crushed this at the beginning, he would have
yeah.
won the election in a landslide,
Oh,
in
no
my
doubt.
opinion,
Yeah, no
because that
doubt.
erases all the doubt about him, about his governing, about, how stable he
Mm.
is as a leader. Like, can
Yeah.
he handle a crisis? But,
Yeah,
right now,
if he had handled this even moderately competently, I absolutely agree with you. He would have just completely I mean, we saw it as you were mentioning that we saw it at the beginning where his poll numbers were starting to go up because it was like, well, I see him every day. He's the leader. There's this rally around the flag effect. He's on my TV. He must be doing something. I guess he's kind of competent. But then we started to see him doing all these gaffes, and then he stopped taking it seriously. And then he absolutely plummeted. And so now he's trying to like make up back for that. But you're right. I do wonder, like if if we end up in a situation where it starts going back down, headed towards November, I mean, could Donald Trump start coming back up because people kind of forget about it? And guys, I mean, maybe you watching this think that like the memory of people in terms of politics is forever. Guys, remember when Bernie Sanders was ahead and then things changed like that? Remember, I mean, things just change on a dime. Literally just a few months ago, we were talking about how Joe Biden was going to get obliterated by Donald Trump. Now we're talking about how Donald Trump is going to get obliterated by Joe Biden. What's to say that it couldn't flip back in a few more months?
I expect it to flip back, and I don't think the people
Hmm.
on the conservative middle left may be pretending to be progressive. I don't know what to call it. I can't
Yeah.
say the left for the Democrats, but I'm just going to say, the center party. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're prepared for this surge that is about to come, because I think it will come, because, the media headlines change every other day, and you really don't know. It's unpredictable how people are going to perceive things, and we don't know what events are going to happen in the world. Is what Trump is doing right now with like the federal officers ripping protesters off the streets in unmasked vans right now, what he's doing in Portland and what he's doing in Chicago, will that hurt his polling numbers or will that help his polling numbers? Because these are really, really Democratic ran cities with, I think, 75% Democrat majorities.
Mm-hmm.
He's not losing any conservative votes if he goes into those cities and rips it apart with the federal
Mm.
agents. But from the outside, do people in the middle, the moderates, the scared white people, essentially see that and feel reminiscent of Nixon and Reagan when they say law and order? Trump is going to maintain law and order,
Yeah.
and he's using that ad. Do you think the ads are effective when he's showing pictures of his America and he says that this will be America if Biden's in charge, and it shows like a burning car from a protest a couple weeks ago? Do you think that messaging is effective at all?
It really is hard to say, but here's what I do think is that it's clearly obviously like red meat for the base, and I think that it shores up that base, that that super hardcore Trump law and order base. It makes sure that they're going to get out and vote. Excuse me.
Yep.
Make sure that they're going to get out and vote, and that's really important for Donald Trump right now, where there are a lot of people out there who are maybe less sure about Donald Trump, even people who voted for Donald Trump last time around, maybe even are very sympathetic with the message of law and order, but are looking at this COVID stuff and they're like, dude, like my mom died, and that's hard to overcome. But if you show pictures of a burning car, I do think that it can help. And the weird thing about it, Joey, is that like I don't necessarily like we talk about it and we get upset about it, but I'm not sure that it necessarily makes people on the left more likely to go out and vote for Joe Biden to stop Donald Trump, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure what I mean to say is, and I'm not like judging that scenario. I'm just saying that like I don't know that there's any downside or as much of a downside to it as just maybe possibly sort of kinda it could maybe help. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think when it comes to all this culture war BS and all of this fascist, military authoritarian takeover stuff, I think the way Trump supporters are acting is actually getting more leftists out for Biden. Because when you look at his
Hmm.
supporters who are getting pissed off, who aren't wearing their masks, who are flying swastikas. When you're looking at these people, I think a lot of people on the left are sick of them. And although they hate Joe Biden, they don't want to see people who like Trump win again because they know what that means socially, and they know if there's an actual crisis again, Trump will let it go to shit. And his second term is going to be really telling. And I said this before, in talking to you. Presidents during their second terms are going to do whatever they want because they don't need to worry about reelection. And right now we're
Yeah.
seeing this Trump pivot on COVID. I said initially, if this was Donald Trump's second term, the end of it, he wouldn't have done anything for COVID. Maybe he would have gave it lip service and said the free market was going to handle it and you have freedom to not wear a mask. But this definite shift at the end is definitely because there's an upcoming election. I think
Well,
if this is Donald Trump's second term, and I think we had a little bit of a disagreement on this. If this is Trump's second
yeah.
term, I don't think he makes the flip right now. I think he keeps going hardcore nationalist, culture war rhetoric.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So I do think that we maybe had like a slight disagreement on that point last time around. And like so my thought is still like I think yes, you're right in terms of the actions of Donald Trump, but also we have to remember second term presidents are oftentimes lame duck sessions, especially the last 2 years, right? The first 2 years maybe after reelection they can get a little bit of things done, but they also become kind of lame ducks because there's a lot of representatives who, aren't necessarily able to grift on the president in the same way because they know that next time around that president won't be on the ballot. And there's sort of more insecurity around that. And so the actual representatives kind of, they might take hold. So I actually kind of do think, I think that, I might have said this last time around when we were talking, I can't remember for sure, but I kind of do think that like, if this was a second term Trump thing, I actually think that the response would have been better because most of the response was handled by Congress. It wasn't necessarily handled by the president. I agree with you that Trump wouldn't have done anything, but I do think that Congress would have felt like they kind of had to act a little bit more because right now, in order for them to act, or I should say at least a few weeks ago, in order for them to act, they had to go up against Donald Trump, and that's difficult for a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, it really depends on how things shift at that level. And what I said last time is that Trump has such a cultural and cultish effect on these people that they're going to be flying Trump flags for the
Mm,
next, I could see the next 10 to 15 years.
you think
Donald Trump
so?
is going to be a symbol of far-right masculinity, of white nationalism, and of authoritarian fascist military tactics. And I think Donald Trump is going to be that image for a long time. And I think there's going to be more players to fill in that role. As far as down ballot races go, I think it's going to be interesting to see how things shift at the primary level as the Democratic Party moves further right and becomes the umbrella party because they are soaking in the moderate Republicans, they're soaking in the moderate Democrats, they're soaking in people on the left who are willing to stay within the matrix and not challenge the hierarchy right now. So it's
Hmm.
going to be interesting to see how that party develops. And we talked about this before. How the extremes are going to react is really up in the air. We have no idea what's going to happen to finish 2020. And, that's really the
It's
scariness of
bizarre.
it all. We can talk about it. We can make predictions by the week. But this year is so chaotic. Anything outside of a week that we talk about, I don't think we can make any predictions that are actually, I mean, we can do
Yeah.
it for fun, but I don't think we could say anything that could truly predict what's about to go down.
Well, hopefully, even if we didn't make a prediction for you all got a little bit more information, are more informed, and can, go forward and use some judgment in in some way to try to figure some stuff out. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. Make sure to go check out Joey's channel. It's Jola. He's got some great stuff. I'll have a link down in the description to his channel, so you can just click on it. You don't have to search anything. You can just click and go straight to it. So we'll see you all in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.